According to many philosophers, one major problem with divine command theory is that it is not sufficient for doing ethics. And this can be seen in a few different ways. First of all, we can see that divine command theory is not sufficient for doing ethics because many religions involve vagueness and are in need of interpretation. For instance, if you read the sacred religious texts of the Bible or the Quran, for instance, you will find various moral principles. For instance, one moral principle in the Bible is love thy neighbor. But this is a very vague moral principle. And if you're going to make any use of this moral principle, you are going to have to do your own interpretation of what this means. What does it mean to love thy neighbor? Who are thy neighbors? And what exactly does it mean to love them? Are your neighbors including just the people who live next to you? Or do they include all of humankind? Are your neighbors homosexuals? And what exactly does love mean? Does love mean not harm them, not kill them? Or does love them mean go out of your way to help them, to support them? So in other words, you are going to have to reason your way through these religious moral principles. The religion alone, the belief in God alone, even having God's command at hand is not enough. It's not sufficient for actually understanding what is morally right and wrong and how you ought to lead your life. You're going to have to engage in ethics and moral philosophy and employ your own reason to determine what love thy neighbor actually means and what that means for you and your life. Additionally, there are often conflicts within a religion. Sometimes religious leaders will themselves disagree about the meaning of various moral principles found in that respective religion. So these are supposed to be two people who have expert knowledge on God's commands, and yet they are disagreeing with one another. So what does that mean for you? Who should you follow? Who is right? Again, you are going to have to employ your own reason to determine the answer to that question. Sometimes someone may find themselves disagreeing with their own religious leader, saying to themselves, that can't be right, or, that seems morally suspicious to me. So again, when these conflicts arise, you end up having to go beyond simply what God commands and simply what the religion entails, and you are inevitably thrust into the actual doing of ethics, the active engagement in ethics, where you have to employ your own reason. Finally, doing ethics allows us to have productive discourse. When people of different religions, or when someone who is a theist, a believer in God, comes into a discussion with an atheist, it's often very easy for them to have no productive discourse at all, right? Because they just can't agree on anything. But if we think that productive discourse is beneficial, that it's valuable, then we may need to leave our prior religious conceptions at the door. And we may need to really get into the examination and investigation of what moral concepts actually mean. So again, we need to do ethics in order to have this productive discourse. If we were to just say, oh, we have different religious beliefs and leave it at that, you would never have productive discourse with people of different beliefs. And that's not a good thing, I think. So the idea here is that even if divine command theory is true, even if God's commands are the foundation of morality, we still need to engage in ethics and moral philosophy ourselves. We cannot simply just follow what God commands because it may be vague, there may be conflicts within the religion, and it may be hard to get a productive discourse between people with different beliefs. So according to some philosophers, those are some weaknesses of divine command theory. Essentially, it's incomplete.